The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. And I'm all smiles today. It could be a lot worse. It could be a lot better, but it could be a heck of a lot worse. I got cleaned up, got in contact with my barber, was able to make it happen. So I feel fresh and clean. The Redskins got a W over the weekend. Robert Griffin III showed up and showed out as we were able to take down the Minnesota Vikings and end that 8-game home losing streak. So that was refreshing. And it was some really good football this week. I was very pleased with the football that I laid my eyes on over the weekend. If you watched baseball, was some great baseball over the weekend. I did not partake in any of that baseball action as I am really, my mind is one track right now. It's football, and more football. But I did, peek over at the baseball game a little bit, and I caught that meltdown that the Nationals went through. So it was a really good football weekend. And Notre Dame, Fighting Irish, which is my favorite college football team, was able to, outlast Stanford. And so now they're in the top 5 in the BCS for the first time in probably ever since they went to this BCS format. They've never been in the top 5. And so kudos to them. Let's see if they can continue to play good football throughout the season. But this here is an NFL show. So let's get to some NFL action. Let's talk NFL football because there's a lot of NFL to talk about today on Monday, the day after a full slate of Sunday games. So let's talk about what happened yesterday and let's get into some of the games as we go and recap the weekend that was and go slate skating. So without any further ado, let's go slate skating.
The weekend
that was.
We're slate skating. We're slate skating. We're slate skating. We're slate skating.
Our first matchup sees the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And what I thought was going to be a marquee matchup of Sunday, one of the marquee matchups of Sunday. And it did not disappoint. The Cowboys came out in this game and they established the run early. And I thought that the Ravens, coming off of a game last week where they were embarrassed on defense, they didn't give up points, but they gave up rushing yards. They gave up rushing yards in a big way to the tune of over 200 yards a week ago to the Chiefs and Jamal Charles in that rushing attack. And so I thought they were going to come out and play inspired football at home, stop the run, show the rest of the league that game a week ago against the Chiefs was a fluke. It was an anomaly. It's something that doesn't happen against this Ravens defense often, had never happened up until that point, and wasn't going to happen again. But I was wrong. This Dallas Cowboys team came out and established early on that we watched the film a week ago from the Chiefs, and we know you can't stop the run. And we're going to smack you in the face up front. We're going to overpower you. We're going to create holes. We are going to allow our backs to run the football against you. We're going to run the ball repeatedly until you stop it. And I was impressed with Jason Garrett's discipline to continue to run the football because it was working. Normally, Jason Garrett, one of these offensive-minded head coaches who love to throw the football, who can't help themselves, even though the running game, the running attack is working, will shy away from it in order to satisfy their ego, which is wanting to throw the football. He did none of that today, or yesterday, I should say. He was aggressive on the ground. It was working. The ground and pound attack mentality was getting it done. whether it was Felix Jones, DeMarco Murray, Philip Tanner, it didn't matter who was in the game for the Cowboys. They were running the football, especially DeMarco Murray. He was very impressive in the first half running the football. The Ravens, however, on their first drive, the Cowboys could not stop them on third downs. The Cowboys were doing well on first and second downs. They get to third down and were giving up conversions. This only, however, resulted in a field goal for the Ravens, and so the Cowboys were able to hold and force them to kick a field goal. Meanwhile, the Cowboys stormed down the field, and they ran, aided by that running attack, and they were able to get a field goal of their own, and then they were able to tack on another touchdown behind this running attack. The Ravens could not stop the run in the first half to save their lives. It looked a lot like a repeat of last week when they played the Kansas City Chiefs, as the Cowboys were able to run the football at will. And again, kudos to Jason Garrett for sticking with the run because it was working and it was the right thing to do. Run the football until they show you that they can stop it. And they could not stop it. And so the Cowboys kept pounding the football against this Baltimore Ravens defense. As we moved on into the game, the Cowboys were up 10-3. The Ravens started to move the ball. They got into the red zone. The Cowboys was able to get a stop. However, something that plagued them all day, and this is something that has been a trend for the Cowboys over the last decade or so. They're a very undisciplined team in terms of penalties. They get a lot of penalties, and in the most inopportune times. Again, it reared its ugly head in this football game. They had the Ravens stopped on a critical third down in the red zone. Ravens were going to have to kick a field goal. They get a penalty, so that extends the drive. Ravens score a touchdown, tied up at 10. These are the kinds of penalties you can't have if you want to play winning football in the National Football League. You can't have penalties. You can't have turnovers, especially when you're on the road. Cowboys had both. Romo takes the Cowboys down the field on the next possession and throws a pick. They were already in field goal range, possibly going down for 7, and he throws an ill-advised pass under pressure, rolling out, overthrows his receiver right to the Ravens defender, and boom, picked. Ravens have the football. Ravens take that opportunity to move the ball down the field. Cowboys play some terrible defense. Anquan Bolden gets loose in the secondary a few times after having done nothing in this game. Hadn't even had a pass thrown his way up until this point, right before the half. And he explodes for about 3 catches in a row on this drive. Gets the Ravens into scoring territory. Ray Rice takes over from there, gets in the end zone, and the Ravens are up 17-10 at the half after the Cowboys had really dominated this first half of football. It was a shame because they had really outplayed the Ravens in many facets of this game, but had nothing to show for it because of the simple fact that you can't turn it over, you can't have penalties, and that's what they were doing. And as a result, they were trailing at the half of a game that they should have been leading in. And so the Ravens take that 7-point lead to the half. Cowboys get the football to start the second half. They put together a masterful drive, but it only results in a field goal. But they continue to do something that they had done in the first half. They picked right up where they left off. They continued to run the football. Ravens had no answer in this game for the Cowboys' rushing attack. What really hurt the Cowboys, though, was right before the half, the starting tailback, DeMarco Murray, injured his foot. Now, they don't know exactly what the extent of his injury was. I thought that what Laura Oakman said, which is the sideline reporter doing the game for Fox, she said that they didn't tape his foot because that wouldn't do it justice. They mummified his foot. And then they put a pan shot on his foot. And literally, his foot was covered. Both of them. Both of his feet were covered in tape. And they didn't want to tell the Ravens which foot, was the injured foot. So they taped both of his feet heavily. And yeah, I didn't know how he would be able to even run on the field with that much tape. And it looked like he had, 2 moccasins on. They really did a heck of a tape job on his feet. He came in for one play to test it out to see if he could make a go of it. He couldn't do it. Came out the game, and that was it for him for the remainder of the game. So keep your eyes peeled and ears open as to what the status is of DeMarco Murray moving forward for the Dallas Cowboys. So he wasn't able to finish the game, but they still ran the football. And it's next man up mentality. They just stuck the next man in there because It wasn't necessarily the back, even though DeMarco Murray was making some special plays in this game, breaking tackles, getting to the outside, being physical. It really didn't matter who the back was in this game because the war was being won up front. The Dallas Cowboys were opening holes and beating the Ravens to the punch and just out-muscling them, out-physicaling them in the trenches, which is very strange because this Ravens team prides themselves on not being, outmanned, out-physical, especially in the run game, and they were just getting slapped around at home. And so Felix Jones and Philip Tanner and all these other guys that they have on their roster, they just came in the game and they just continued to pick up where the Cowboys left off in the first half. But they only got a field goal on that opening drive. Then what was so strange about this second half for the Ravens is the Cowboys kick off after they get the field goal, and kick returner / receiver Jacoby Jones, who I think is the biggest free agent acquisition in this AFC North division, because the Ravens picked him up probably for more what he can do in the return game than what he is as a receiver. They've gotten more than they bargained for at receiver. I think he's been one of their best receivers on their team, one of the most reliable receivers. Of course, they got Anquan Bolden. They have Torrey Smith. But he's been a great compliment to those guys in the slot, out wide. He's been someone that they could go to on third down. They went to him a couple times on third down early in this football game, as a matter of fact. He's been a great addition to this team. But he showed why he was acquired in the first place. He takes a kickoff that is 8 yards deep in the end zone and proceeds to go 108 yards for a kickoff return touchdown to extend the Ravens lead to 24-13 in this football game. And so what that did, however, was it put the Cowboys back on the field on offense, put that Ravens defense back on the field, and the Ravens offense still hadn't seen the field in the second half because the Cowboys got the ball first, put together a long drive, resulted in a field goal. He goes and gets the 108-yard kickoff return. Now the Cowboys go back on the field, put together another lengthy drive, a lot of running again. This time, they cap this one off with a touchdown. Des Bryant gets in the end zone, and all of a sudden, we have a 20-24 ball game, and the Ravens haven't seen the field on offense in the second half yet. We're almost getting close to the fourth quarter, and the Ravens haven't been on the field. And it really affected them. They get on the field and have two consecutive stagnant 3-and-out possessions. The Cowboys were able to pin them deep as Jacoby Jones tried to repeat what he had done, the previous kickoff. Deep kickoff, back of the end zone. He wants to come out with it again. This time the luck is not there. And they have to start deep in their own territory. And they got stagnant. They went 3-and-out on that possession. The Cowboys got the football back, did nothing. They went 3-and-out, punted, and pinned the Ravens again, who went 3-and-out. And so all of a sudden, this ball game, which looked like it could be in the Ravens' favor and looked like the Ravens could start to try to pull away from the Cowboys, now they are in an absolute dogfight with the Dallas Cowboys. And so the Ravens, who are now leading by one as the Cowboys took one of these possessions down for a field goal, cut the lead to 24-23. Now the Ravens get the football back, and they need to sustain a drive. Even if they don't get points, they need to sustain a drive, something they hadn't done all second half. They go back to the no huddle. This was something that was a thorn in the side of the Cowboys. They had a problem stopping the Ravens' no huddle offense. The Ravens' no huddle attack was really giving the Cowboys fits. They went back to it after 2 3-and-out drives in the second half that was unsuccessful. Went back to the no huddle, something that worked for them time and time again in the first half. Paid dividends. They got in the end zone, and just like that, it's an 8-point lead for the Ravens. And so the Ravens had opportunities to put the Cowboys away, however. After scoring that touchdown, they could have stopped the Cowboys on numerous tries. I mean, I told you that good teams, what separates good defenses from bad defenses is the ability to make plays, the ability to stop, receivers and ball carriers when they catch the football. Where they catch it, if you're there to make a tackle, is where they're stopped. If that's a 5-yard reception, where they catch it, it's a 5-yard gain on the play. Not a 8-yard gain, not a 11-yard gain. And on 3rd and 7, Dez Bryant runs a slant. Kerry Williams has every opportunity to get Dez Bryant down 2 yards short of the first down. Instead of him going after Dez Bryant's legs, because Dez Bryant is physically bigger, much stronger than Kerry Williams is. And so I don't understand why these corners who know that they're facing a big physical receiver will try to go up top and bring them down, knowing that that receiver is much stronger and can carry them 2, 3, 4 extra yards after first contact. Go after the legs, and they'll go down. Well, Kerry Williams decides to jump on Dez Bryant's back/hips, waist, and Dez just drags him 4 extra yards past the marker on 37 to gain about 9 yards on the play and pick up a first down. They end up scoring a touchdown on that drive. These are plays that loom large in the scheme of a ball game. You get a stop there, you might be able to run the clock out. The game could be over. Instead, you don't make the play. The Cowboys continue on that drive. They go down, get 7, as Dez Bryant is able to get in the end zone for his second time in this game. Cut the Ravens' lead to 2. They have to go for a 2-point conversion. Bryant is open again on a beautiful pass from Tony Romo, and he drops it, which is why I've given him the name. And he hasn't been this as much as he was last year, but he's still AKA Mr. Milk Carton. Because when you need him the most, especially in the second half, he goes missing. And in his best imitation of Mr. Milk Carton, he dropped the football on that 2-point conversion. So the Cowboys down 2 now must kick an onside kick. They get the onside kick, amazing enough. A nice little squibber that the kicker Dan Bailey kicks right through the legs of Brendan I.M. Badejo, who should have caught it, who should have landed on it. Instead, it goes through his legs. Cowboys recover, and they're in business. They still have 1 timeout remaining. They're about 25 yards from field goal range. The first play, they load up, and he throws a deep ball to Kevin Ogletree, who struggled in this game, dropped a few passes, made a few wrong moves on a couple routes, cost Tony Romo an interception early in the football game. He didn't catch it. Deep ball right off his hands, and he dropped it. He got bailed out, however, on a pass interference call that I thought was questionable. They talk about an arm bar. Give me a break. It was a lot of hand fighting going on. I don't think his arm impeded him in any way. He just dropped the football, but that's the call they made. You have to live with it. So now they're basically right on the fringe of field goal range, the Cowboys are. And so all they need to do really is get about 7 yards, and I'm thinking they're comfortably in Dan Bailey's range. Instead, they throw a 2-yard pass to Dez Bryant that he actually goes backwards in catching it, and he didn't get forward progress, which I thought might have been a mistake on the part of the officials. Nonetheless, they mark it about a 1-yard loss. So that pass interference that put them right on the fringe of Dan Bailey's field goal range, they're now slightly on the outside of it, even though he has the leg to make it. Accuracy-wise, I don't know if he's comfortable enough kicking that kind of distance and still having the accuracy to send it home. So the Cowboys having that 1 timeout, you're thinking, okay, call that timeout. Because they were taking too long to get to the line of scrimmage to spike it and save that timeout so they could use all parts of the field. So just use the timeout and you work the outside. If you don't get it, throw it away, kick the field goal. Well, the Cowboys, in some terrible clock management, allowed the clock to run down essentially to 3 seconds, ice the last timeout, get nothing in terms of yardage in the way of making this a closer field goal for Dan Bailey. And so he has to come out and kick a career-high field goal. They're asking him to kick a 52-yard field goal, and he hasn't kicked a field goal over 39 yards this season. He hasn't kicked a 40-yard field goal all season long. So this is a dramatic jump for him from not kicking a 40-yard field goal, let alone a 50-yard field goal all season long, to saying, hey, go out and kick a game-winning 52-yard field goal. He steps up and calmly misses that game-winning field goal, and the Ravens hold on in a nail-biter, in a thriller, 31-29 against the Cowboys, taking their record to 5-1 on the season. Hard-fought victory, one that they should have won probably a bit easier, but they made it tough on themselves. Nonetheless, they got the win. They go to 5-1. The Cowboys, they should have won this football game. They had every opportunity to win this game. They dominated this football game, especially running the football. Over 220 yards of rushing offense for the Cowboys in this game. They should have won this game. But again, penalties, inopportune turnover, that'll cost you a football game every time. This loss now drops them to 2-3 on the season, coming off of that bye. And so now they're at the bottom of the NFC East division, the only team in that division with a losing record. So now the Cowboys have to right this ship as they have to embark on some kind of winning streak to get this thing turned around because, again, this division is very muddled. Everyone is jumbled together. They're only one game out of second place. They're only a game and a half out of first place. And they beat the Giants already, so they're not that far off. But, again, tough, hard-fought loss. If they want to win this division, if they want to win enough games to make it to the playoffs as a wild card, they have to find a way to win football games like this one. Good thing for them was this was an AFC opponent, so it doesn't hurt them in the NFC standings in terms of, their record win-loss wise in the NFC, but still, nonetheless, a loss on that record, one that they should have probably won on the road against a tough opponent in the Ravens. So the Cowboys drop to 2-3 on the season. Ravens go to 5-1. Moving right along. And what was a surprise to many, but if you had been watching football, this wasn't a shock to you. You probably called this one. I know I called it, and I know a lot of other people in the football realm saw this one coming. You could see this one coming from a mile away. The Cincinnati Bengals traveling to the Cleveland Browns in a divisional matchup, family business being attended to. And the Browns had already played the Bengals once this season, dropping that game in Cincinnati to the Bengals in a shootout. And so we knew that the Browns could score on this Cincinnati Bengals team. And if you knew what you were seeing and if you've been watching football, you saw this one coming from a mile away. You knew the Browns had a legitimate shot of getting off the schneid this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. They could beat the Bengals at home. Again, I had already said the Browns are going to win soon. You can see it coming. They almost got one from the Ravens. They jumped on the Giants before they ran out of fuel. They were getting close. They almost beat this Cincinnati Bengals team on the road. You can see them getting close. The wheels were starting to turn and go into motion. And I said it last week. They're going to get someone soon. It's going to be at home. It's going to be someone they know. And what do you know? The very next week, up on the docket for them was the Cincinnati Bengals, the team they had already played once before, team in their division that they know very well. And they were at home, the perfect storm to win a football game. And they welcomed back Joe Hayden. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, that was a welcome addition. You were happy to see Joe Hayden. You were singing, "Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back." Because Joe Hayden on one side, Sheldon Brown on the other side, Buster Screen coming in and playing some of that slot. That's some good corner play if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. And so that's exactly what helped them win this football game. So in this game, the Browns come out early on and have a great drive. Brandon Weeden is getting better. Each and every week, he's getting better. There's sometimes where, again, he's one of these guys where he's going to make a throw here or there where you go, what are you doing? How did you miss that throw? And then he's going to wow you like he did with that touchdown pass to Josh Gordon up top. But they had an impressive first drive, but it ended abruptly with a pick because the ball was batted in the air and it was picked off by Michael Johnson, the defensive end for the Bengals. And so that stopped a drive that had promise. They were moving the football down the field. They were looking like they were going for 7. They were already in field goal range. And so Phil Dawson is, he's money. Once you get in anywhere within 50 yards of a field goal, he's money. And they were already well within his range. And so they were going to get points on this drive. But it was batted in the air, picked off, and the Bengals didn't waste time. Had a quick strike to Jermaine Gresham on a slant pattern, makes a man miss, stiff arm someone, and takes off. 77 yards later, he's in the end zone, and the Bengals are up 7-0 in this football game. And I thought that the next possession for the Bengals on offense was key because if Andy Dalton connects, and they had several chances to really stick it to the Browns, get up on top of them, and really have that doubt to start to creep into their minds. Andy Dalton was not sharp in this football game, especially early on. He let some passes get away from him that I'm pretty sure he wishes he had back. Jermaine Gresham in the flats on third down, wide open. He makes that pass. Gresham can make someone miss. He could probably still be running. Even if he doesn't, it's a first down. You keep the sticks moving and continue to work on a drive that could yield points for you. And at that point, if you go up double figures on the Browns probably start to think, here we go again. They might start pressing, might force some turnovers in your favor, and then again, you get a win. However, you don't convert on third down on a few drives where you had open receivers and you just flat out missed. And I'm speaking of Andy Dalton. Left the door open for the Browns, who make a play of their own. Brandon Weeden goes up top to Josh Gordon on a beautiful one-hand snag by Gordon, who gets behind the defense for the second consecutive week. He did it a week ago against the Giants. And he's turning out to be the big play receiver for this Browns offense. He looks to be the guy that's going to take the top off of defense, make an explosive play, and get into the end zone. Weeden is looking for him, and he is making plays in the secondaries of defending teams when they're playing the Browns. Have to look out for Josh Gordon. He's turning into a big play receiver for that offense. Bengals had a chance to extend the lead before the half. They were up 14-7 on the Browns. They get into field goal range on a nice completion from Andy Dalton to A.J. Green, but it's too far. They don't have any more timeouts. They don't get set up in time enough to spike it to preserve enough time to kick a field goal, so they go to the half up 14-7. Again, another missed opportunity from this Cincinnati Bengals football team. Browns come out in the second half, play some consistent football on the defensive end, kind of shut down the Bengals. They really stifled them in the second half, and a lot of that had to do with the corner play. Joe Hayden back out wide, Sheldon Brown, Buster Screen. They were really locking these guys up out wide. Joe Hayden was beat a couple of times. He was beat, but again, he was solid out there, and he's going to be rusty because he's missed 4 games with that suspension. But he's better than any corner they have on that roster. And so his presence back on the field made a big difference for this Browns defense. They were able to slow the pace of the game down in terms of stopping the Bengals on offense. And then I thought Josh Cribbs really turned this game in the favor of the Browns on a return. He takes it on a punt return and returns it and gets a huge return, sets the Browns up. They get a field goal, and tack on another field goal. And I have a thing. Don't ask me why, but I have a thing for Tennessee running backs. I don't know what it is. I was an Arian Foster fan. I was disappointed that the Redskins didn't take a flyer out on Arian Foster. We needed a running back at the time when he came out. I didn't think that, Clinton Portis was going to be around too much longer. We didn't have anything behind him. I'd have loved to see us take a flyer on Arian Foster. I didn't know why people were missing what I saw, because I saw a stud in his junior season. Yeah, that senior season was not what everybody thought it was going to be, but I saw the potential. And after him, I saw Montario Hardesty, another guy that I liked a lot. The Browns had him, and they just had him rotting away on the bench. I don't know if he's in the doghouse, if he's done something to Pat Shurmur that's gained him traction in that doghouse. I don't know what's going on out there. But he was in the preseason. I was like, good, I'm going to see Montario Hardesty, especially with Trent Richardson not being able to play, starting the season out. But Trent Richardson came back, and I haven't seen Montario Hardesty since. When Trent Richardson went down in this game, I saw Montario Hardesty for the first time. Because I don't even understand when they go to spell Richardson, why I'm not seeing Montario Hardesty. He hadn't had a carry up until this game. When they spell Richardson, they usually come with Chris Obanaya. And I've been waiting for Montario Hardesty. I got Montario Hardesty, and I was not disappointed. The Browns need to play him more. I like what he brings to this offense. Him and Richardson can be a great 1-2 punch for this offense. Let's hope that Richardson isn't hurt badly. He missed the rest of the game once he went down with that injury in the fourth quarter. But again, Hardesty came in and did what they needed him to do, picked up tough yards, ran hard, scored touchdowns. That's what the Browns needed him to do, and that's exactly what he did. The Browns take the lead with the Montario Hardesty 1-yard touchdown plunge. On the ensuing kickoff, the Browns were able to stop the Bengals deep in their own territory. And as soon as they come out first play, the corner Sheldon Brown jumps a slant route beautifully, steps in, takes it to the house, and just like that, the Browns are now on top of the Cincinnati Bengals 34-17. And at that point, you knew they had them. They had them right where they wanted them. Defense was able to hold, and they get the 24-34 victory, getting their first victory of the season. And again, if you'd been watching football, you saw this one coming from a mile away. I predicted this one. This was one of my upsets of the week. But in my mind, it wasn't a big upset because I thought the Browns were playing good football and they were going to beat somebody at home. It was going to be an opponent that they knew. What better way to do it than when you're conducting some family business? And they got it done. Browns go to 1-5 on the season. Bengals, again, they're starting to fall back down to earth. Now they're 3-3. Again, I don't think they're a playoff team. And they're starting to show it with losses to two teams that at the time when they played them were under 500. The Dolphins are now at 500 at a 3-3 mark, but they were at home against the Dolphins. They should be able to beat the Dolphins at home. They dropped that one. They go on the road to a winless team in the Browns, lose that game, and now they go from 3-1 to 3-3 on the season. Let's see if the Bengals can find a way to rebound and bounce back from their 2-game losing streak. Moving right along, the St. Louis Rams take on the Miami Dolphins in a game between two teams that are coming out of nowhere and playing solid football, have their records respectable at this point in the season when no one thought they would even be close to the marks that they're sporting right now. Rams 3-2, over 500 for the first time since 2006. Meanwhile, the Dolphins came into this game at 2-3. No one expected the Dolphins to win maybe more than 4 or 5 games this season, especially starting a rookie, Ryan Tannehill, at quarterback. With the talent that we saw in the Hard Knock special, you thought this was a 2-3, 4 at most win Dolphin football team. Well, they already have 2 wins coming into this football game. At home against a Rams team who doesn't score a lot of points, but is going to play some very aggressive, tough defense. And so you know this is going to be a very tough, defensive struggle football game. Not a lot of points was going to be scored. I thought that the first to 20 was going to win. And again, the Dolphins being a home team, that's where I was leaning toward. And in this game, early on, the Rams came out and they established that they can move the football on the Dolphins. They were going up and down the field on the Dolphins, 20-20. Dolphins could not stop them. Sam Bradford was using his legs in this football game. I was impressed to see a little bit of the mobility that I thought he had in him, but you rarely see it out of him. He usually just sits back there, and if pressure comes, he crumbles. But he was getting out of the pocket. Like, he got a little bit of confidence early in the game, getting out, and then he started using his legs. And he was running all over the place, extending plays, making plays with the football. But the only problem was they weren't converting in the red zone. They were forced to kick field goals. They got in the red zone and they got conservative. Started making bad play calls, passing on first down, passing on second down, trying to run it in on third down. They were doing a lot of ill-advised things on possessions when they got in the red zone. I thought sometimes they were over-aggressive. Sometimes they weren't aggressive enough. Either way, it yielded field goals. They jumped on the Dolphins early in this football game, 6-0 with field goals. Again, they dominated thoroughly in the first portion of this game, but they had nothing to show for it. The Dolphins, on the arm of Tannehill, finding wide open Marlon Moore for a touchdown score of about 35 yards, take the lead 7-6 in a game that they had been thoroughly dominated by the Rams to that point. Yet the Rams were trailing in the football game. And these are the types of games that if you don't take advantage of opportunities when they come your way, it's going to come back to haunt you in the end of the football game. A lot of young kickers who had been flawless up until this week, who had been magnificent for their teams, a lot of kickers were missing field goals this week. Surprising enough that the Redskins, who had field goal issues all year long, go out and get a new kicker in Kai Forbath. He makes his only attempt a 50-yarder to help the Redskins in their football game. Yet, all the teams around the league that I've been talking about, I wanted a kicker like theirs, They were missing field goals. The main kicker missing field goals on this Sunday. Young Jeezy, the Rams' standout freshman kicker, Greg Zuerlein, missed 3 field goals. So un-Greg Zuerlein-like. And in his defense, it was a very windy day in Miami, but still, he had been so accurate and so reliable for the Rams to start this season out that it was very surprising to see him missing field goals. However, the critical play in this game, I thought, was when the Rams fumbled, a football, turned it over, and allowed the Dolphins to kick a field goal. They end up losing this game by a field goal. And if young Jeezy, pounds home one of his 3 field goal misses, maybe this is a different game, but you can't turn the football over on the road. And this game was full. When I say full, I mean littered. I mean, I've never seen so many illegal hands to the face penalties in my life. Literally, had to be 7, 8, maybe 9 illegal hands to the face penalties in this game. Never seen anything like it. Never seen this many illegal hands to the face penalties called. It was crazy. Every penalty, every other penalty, illegal hands to the face. Never seen anything like it. And the Dolphins, they did exactly what they've been doing all season, a recipe for them winning football games. Solid defense, nothing spectacular on the offensive end. Don't turn it over. If you do, make sure you get turnovers from the other team, but don't turn it over. Be cautious on offense, play solid defense, and when the opportunities present themselves, take advantage of them, win the football game. That's what the Dolphins did in this game, as they took advantage of the Ram mistake that they made, got a field goal off of it, limit the Rams and everything that they were doing. The Rams, they stockpiled over 400 yards of offense. The Dolphins didn't amass 200 yards of offense, just to give you the discrepancy in how the Rams were moving the football and what the Dolphins were doing on offense. The Rams dominated this football game, but had nothing to show for it because they weren't able to get in the end zone. They weren't able to cash in on drives by finishing them with field goals if they didn't get in the end zone. And they turned the football over. Gave the Dolphins a short field, gave them an opportunity to score points. And so there you have it. A football game in which you dominate on the road, but don't win because you have too many penalties. You turn the football over, and you don't take advantage of opportunities that come your way. Timely scores, timely plays in the game by the Dolphins win them this football game. They take care of the St. Louis Rams at home, 17-14, taking their record to an even 3-3 mark on the season, dropping the Rams to an even 3-3 mark on the season. So now we got 2 3-3 teams on the season, and now the AFC East is all 3-3. Every single team in this division is 3-3. You look at the NFC West, and every team in that division is 3-3 or better in that division. And so you got 2 teams that came up against each other that are playing in very good divisions right now. And they were supposed to be the bottom feeders in both of their respective divisions, and right now they're playing really good football. So we'll see what these 2 teams are able to do moving forward. The Dolphins get the win, however, at home against the Rams, 17-14. As we continue to skate through the slate of games on this weekend that was, we find ourselves in New Jersey, where the New York Jets are waiting on the Indianapolis Colts. Colts coming off an emotional win a week ago against the Green Bay Packers at home, off their bye. The Jets, meanwhile, coming off of 2 straight debilitating home losses at the hands of the 49ers and the Houston Texans, now looking to stop this home skid. They can't afford to drop 3 straight at home. And so they really needed to get this one and find their way back to 500 on the season. If you're looking for me to praise Mark Sanchez in this football game, give him kudos for having a strong performance, I'm not going to do that. He did absolutely nothing in this football game other than take what the defense was giving him. They didn't ask him to do much. They babysat him a la Alex Smith. The running game was efficient. The defense was dominant. And all he had to do was throw the ball on 3rd and 4 and complete a pass. It was 11-18 for 82 yards or something like that. Really meager numbers. The bulk load of the work went to Sean Green on this day, who had over 32 carries, or who had 32 carries for over 160 yards rushing. And so Sanchez made a couple of good throws, especially those in the end zone for a couple of touchdown passes. But again, you're not going to hear me praise him because he does this every now and again, normally on a larger scale, though, not as pedestrian as 11 of 18, but he does this every 3 or 4 weeks where he has a solid game, kind of reminds everybody, hey, this is why you drafted me, and then, the next 2 or 3 weeks, he plays terrible, turns the football over, Jets lose, and they're asking themselves again, why is he our starting quarterback? So not going to praise him. What I'm going to do, though, is give credit to this defense because they went out and dominated the offense that they were supposed to dominate. The Colts were without Donald Brown, so the running game was really going to take a hit there. I told you, and I've said it from day one, especially after that performance, first game of the season against the Chicago Bears, that the formula for disaster, if you want to lose games, if you're the Colts, is let Andrew Luck throw it 40, 45, 50 times. Cut him loose. He's going to turn it over. He's a rookie quarterback. You're putting too much on his shoulders. If you want to win games as the Indianapolis Colts, you're going to have to find a way to run the football, take the pressure off of Andrew Luck. No Donald Brown. I knew they were going to try to put it on Andrew Luck's shoulders. They did that. He accounted for 3 turnovers. They had 4 on the day. He threw 2 interceptions, fumbled another time. And so that's what you're going to get when you ask Andrew Luck to be your savior, to fling it and sling it around the field 40, 45, 50 times in a game. He's going to make mistakes. That's what happened in this football game. They turned it over way too much. Jets took full advantage of every single opportunity that they had. They scored points when they were there to be scored. And they scored, more importantly, they scored touchdowns. They got in the red zone. There was no resistance from this Colts defense. They were missing Robert Mathis. That's a big part of what they do on defense. If he's not able to play and get pressure on the quarterback, this defense is very stagnant. They were allowing the Jets to run rough shot over them all day long. Sean Green was getting yardage on this defense, something he hadn't done all season long. Really, something he hadn't did since last year sometime. I mean, Sean Green has been a non-factor in this Jets offense all year long, and he was able to get off and have a dynamite day against this Colts defense. Cromartie, he is calling out his shot right now. He said he was the best corner in the league after Revis went down. He's playing like it after shutting down, essentially, Andre Johnson a week ago. He came in and off of Reggie Wayne's big game a week ago against the Packers, he limited Reggie Wayne to next to nothing in this game, picking off Andrew Luck twice and could have had another 3 or another 2 picks or so in this game, but 2 of them, or at least one, was called back via penalty. And so he had a stellar game. The Jets just dominated in all facets of the game. I want to see them run the football more efficiently. I know they did this because it was the Colts, but this is something they need to try to bottle up and take moving forward, because if they can run the football, you can't be like the 49ers, but if they can mirror something sort of what they do but be more explosive on offense, they got a shot. That's what the Jets need to be, though. They need to be a team that can run the football. I told you that's what Rex Ryan really wants to do. In his heart, in Rex Ryan's heart, he wants to run the football. He wants to run it 40 times, limit his quarterback's attempts, which is exactly what they did today, and go win football games. And so the Jets were able to dominate and throttle the Colts 35-9, winning this football game, going away. Sanchez was average, but he didn't make any mistakes. He made passes when they were there to be made, and so they won this football game. Sean Green was amazing. Defense was stellar, and they get the win 35-9, taking their record to 3-3 on the season, dropping the Colts down to 2-3 on the season. Next up on the docket, as we go slate skating, was my sole survivor pick of the week, and I had to sweat this one out. I was very disappointed because I said all the Falcons really had to do. This is the second time I've made this declaration against the Raiders. And this is the second time they've tried to stick it to me. The first time they actually did stick it to me, I didn't pick them in the Soul Survivor. I didn't pick the Steelers that week against them, but I was just saying the Steelers just had to show up, play Steelers football, and they would get the win. But that was on the road. The Steelers were on the road. This was a road game for the Raiders, however. They were playing against an undefeated Atlanta Falcons team on the road. They were coming off a bye, so they had time to prepare. They were getting healthy. They got some rest. But I didn't care. They're not a very talented football team. Their secondary is their weakness. The strength of the Falcons team is their passing attack. And so I thought this is a perfect matchup for the Falcons. They're going to go out, dominate the Raiders, and they're going to win this game going away. And so this was my Soul Survivor of the week. And this game turned out to be an absolute nail-biter. And you can see how it was going to be starting off early on. The Raiders came out and set the tempo for this game. They really came out and established that you're not going to blow us out. And as a matter of fact, we're going to hit your quarterback. We're going to hit him often. You're going to turn the football over. You're going to give us every opportunity to win this football game. We're going to stay in this game. But of course, we're the Raiders, so we're not going to win, but we're going to scare the hell out of you. And that's exactly what they did. They came in first half, literally first quarter, 2 picks on Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan hadn't really turned the football over all year. 2 picks in the first quarter. And they were bad picks. You know, the first one was undercut, but it wasn't even a good throw. Wasn't a good decision, wasn't a good throw. Undercut by Yohelio Hansen, picked off. Raiders in business. They're able to get a field goal out of it. And that was the biggest reason why the Falcons were able to get this win. Is because they were able to stiffen. And I don't know if it's more so them stiffening or the Raiders just being inept in the red zone. Nonetheless, both teams weren't that good in the red zone. I mean, we're talking about field goals of 22 and 20 in this game, one from each team. They weren't getting it done inside the red zone. And we're talking inside the 5. These teams were struggling to get in the end zone against each other. And that's normally not something that Falcons struggle with, especially with Michael Turner being so big down there in the red zone. You get him going, it's hard to stop him from getting in the end zone. The Raiders defense were having none of it in this game. And so the Falcons had to kick a field goal with inside their own inside the Raiders 5-yard line. So this game was full of mistakes by both teams. Raiders hung around. Denarius Moore made some big plays in this game. Carson Palmer really was throwing the football well and efficient in this football game. He really didn't make any mistakes but one. And that one mistake cost them dearly in this football game. The Raiders and the Falcons were tied at 13 in the second half, in the fourth quarter, excuse me. And this is deep in the fourth quarter. A little over 2 minutes to go. Raiders are driving to put together a game-winning score, maybe a game-winning touchdown, but definitely already well in Sebastian Janikowski's field goal range. And he gets picked off by a playmaker, a guy they went out in the offseason to make plays, went out in the offseason to get to make plays just like this. Asante Samuel picks it off, makes a hell of a play on the ball, plucks it out of the air, snatches it, runs down the sideline. I thought he was going to allow Carson Palmer to catch him because he really eased up as if he wasn't going to be caught. But again, it's a quarterback. He stops, gives him an inside move. Carson Palmer falls off of him. He walks into the end zone. Falcons take a 20-13 lead, and at this point you're thinking, okay, that's the dagger. The Raiders aren't going to be able to respond from this, giving up a back-breaking touchdown when you were looking to take, a go-ahead score late in the fourth quarter. Now you give it up. We're talking a 7 or a 10, maybe 14-point swing with that interception. And we're approaching the 2-minute warning. No way the Raiders are coming back from that. That's a devastating blow. But the Raiders, as they had done all day long, responded. They go right back down the field. They march right down and give the ball to Darren McFadden at the 2-yard line. And he gets in the end zone. And just like that, we are tied at 20. Only thing the Raiders made a mistake in doing is scoring too quick. They left Matt Ryan about 55 seconds left on the clock. He was able to get his team into field goal range. And Matt Ryan, again, speaking of kickers who were missing on this Sunday, a guy that had been just about automatic for the Falcons all season long, missed a field goal early in this football game. had a chance to redeem himself, to end this football game with 4 seconds on the clock. 55-yard field goal for the win. And wouldn't you know it, Matt Bryant nails the 55-yarder, takes the Falcons to 6-0 on the season. Hard-fought ball game by the Oakland Raiders, but did not do enough to win in the end. They dropped to 1-4 on the season. And the Falcons, although they're 6-0, I am not impressed at all with this Falcons team. I don't think they're the best team in the NFC. I would put 3 or 4 other teams ahead of them. I just think that they're finding ways to win games, and that's what you got to do in the National Football League. You beat the teams that they put in front of you, but they're not doing it impressively. And I'm telling you what, if they play a team that can turn them over just like the Raiders did, but score points, a la Giants, they're going down. They're going down. I don't think that they're right where they need to be in terms of, putting teams away. I don't think they're at the level yet where they get a team that is inferior to them and they just stomp them. That's where, if you want to win championships, that's what you got to be able to do. And when you play, elite competition, you got to be able to raise your level of play. And I'm not sure the Falcons can do that right now. But we'll see. But they're 6-0 on the season. And the Raiders are 1-4. So got my Soul Survivor pick correct, but I had to sweat it out. More so than I thought I was going to have to. So again, Falcons 23, Raiders 20. Falcons go to 6-0. Raiders go to 1-4 on the season.